morning, Mr. Speaker. I move that standing orders 16, 17, 28, 29, and 32 as related to the arrangement of business, content of business, notice of motion, form of notice, and dispensing with notice be suspended.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that private members bill be inserted as, but you didn't say that. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to continue here.
Mr. Speaker, I wish, pursuant to standing orders 16 and 17, to move the motion that the order of business of this meeting be varied to provide for private members' business to be taken immediately after announcements by the Speaker and before presentation of papers. And this new item, which is private members' business, be inserted as item 9, and under that item, insert sub-item Roman numerals 1, to have the title of Dominic Award of Honor, DAH, be posthumously conferred upon the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles. And that item 9 and its sub-item Roman numeral 1 shall both form part of the order paper, and as a consequence, the items on the order paper be renumbered accordingly.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that private members' business be inserted as new item 9, and under that item, insert sub-item Roman numeral 1, and these shall now form part of the order paper. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the order paper be adopted as circulated, as amended.
As amended.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the order paper be adopted as amended. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Obituary and congratulatory remarks. Confirmation of minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the minutes of the meeting of Friday 25th, Monday 28th, Tuesday 29th, Wednesday 30th, and Thursday 31st July 2025, and Friday 29th August 2025 be confirmed as circulated.
Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meetings of Friday 25th, Monday 28th, Tuesday 29th, and Wednesday 30th, and then Thursday 31st July 2025, and Friday 29th August 2025 be confirmed as circulated. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Announcement by Speaker.
I received free correspondence requesting permission to be absent from today's meeting. The first one, Honorable Greta Roberts, that is in order to attend an urgent personal matter. The Honorable Octavia Alfred, who is ill, and the Honorable Cassani Laville to attend an urgent matter.
Business.
It's okay.
Yes.
Whereas the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the Honorable Pierre Charles were both exemplary and patriotic citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica who served this nation and its people with honor, distinction, and unwavering dedication. And whereas the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles each served as Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica and as members of this honorable House. And whereas the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the Honorable Pierre Charles were first elected to this honorable House on the first day of July 1985 for the constituency of Peebush and Granby, respectively. And whereas both the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the Honorable Pierre Charles devoted their lives to the advancement and development of Dominica and to the improvement of the welfare and well-being of all citizens and residents of this nation. And whereas this honorable House deems it most fitting and desirable that the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the Honorable Pierre Charles be formally recognized for their selfless, devoted, and distinguished service to the Honorable House, to the Commonwealth of Dominica, to its people, and indeed to the wider Caribbean region. And whereas this Honorable House further considers it appropriate that, as a token of such recognition, this title of Dominica Award of Honor, DAH, be posthumously conferred upon the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles. Be it resolved that this Honorable House hereby prays that Her Excellency Sylvanie Burton, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, do bestow upon the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the Honorable Pierre Charles the title of Dominica Award of Honor, DH. And be it further resolved that the bestowing of this honor be duly memorialized and that a certified copy of the minutes of this meeting be presented to the next of kin of the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles. And be it further resolved that henceforth the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles shall be known and referred to in all official and other appropriate references and functions as the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas, DAH, and the Honorable Pierre Charles, DH, respectively. Mr. Speaker, in introducing this motion to the House, I will share but just a few words. First, on the late Rosie Douglas, someone who championed the cause of the ordinary man, someone who championed the cause of social justice and equality, and also ensuring that women were given the fair and equal opportunity to be considered in various spheres of our society, not only in Dominica, but globally. Rosie is known for ensuring that the less fortunate, that there was no one who should remain on the floor, while at the same time there was no glass ceiling. And ensuring that at all material times, he provided his time, his resources, and his intellect to the welfare and well-being of the people of Dominica. We will recall, Mr. Speaker, while in opposition, Rosie Douglas represented the interests of Dominica with great statesmanship. He championed the cause of the farmers by ensuring that they got the protection that they required in the United Kingdom for our bananas, and was the first person to signal to the country the inevitability of the challenges that would have befallen the banana industry. Rosie used his contacts in the UK Labour Party to get members of parliament to ask of the then government in the 80s and the 90s questions in the parliament of the United Kingdom. Questions on behalf of the people of Dominica, questions on behalf of the people of the Caribbean, questions on behalf of the people in the world who were subjected to injustices wherever they are. And so in Dominica, came back to Dominica and was also the leader of the Labour Party, became a member of parliament in July 1, 1985. And throughout this term, Mr. Speaker, I recall the days when Rosie brought Dr. McCook from Guadeloupe by fishing boat at Ansley Bay with medication and going from house to house across Dominica to provide care to people. And this is the kind of leadership the world needs today, Mr. Speaker. One that is centered on empathy, concern for each other, ensuring that we are truly our neighbor's keeper. We've seen a world that is dramatically changing before our very eyes. One that is cold, one that is indifferent. And we have to ensure that we in our society, Mr. Speaker, that would not exemplify those kind of characteristics. We exemplified one of empathy, of concern for each other and for one another. And so Rosie became the Prime Minister of this country and continued the battle of ensuring a better way of life for our people. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, as the Lord would have it, he left us 8 months within his prime ministership. And I say to people, and I say publicly and privately, and with a sense of sincerity, I would have loved for Rosie to be here today and be the Prime Minister of the country. And I serve as his disciple in the advancement of people's development. When you were wrong, Rosie, you were wrong love and concern and empathy. And this is why we as a government, we as a party must always remain true to the ideals of the party. Concern about the less fortunate. Concern in ensuring, and we must never be wary of this. We must never be indifferent of this. And it's not because that we in the society, Mr. Speaker, may be better off than we were back then that we don't forget from whence we came. We must always be reminded that we are standing on the shoulders of persons who were subjected to slavery and racism and injustices. And today, if we are better off today, it's because of the sacrifices of these people. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm not in the business. I try not to respond to naysayers or it's too late or this. This party, this government has a history of recognizing leadership in this country. It is this government and this party that came into parliament to address an issue with regards to E.O. LeBlanc. When we passed a law in parliament to give Mr. LeBlanc, may his soul rest in eternal peace, a better pension as the founding father of the nation. His pension was $200 a month. And we came to parliament here as Prime Minister and passed a bill and a law $1,000 a month, and if his wife succeeds him, she gets $1,000 a month. It is this government that went to the cabinet, and I'm hoping that we can put it in a matter of law with regards to former prime ministers. That today, every former prime minister, Honorable Edison James, Honorable O.J. Serafin, and Honorable Patrick John May, soul rest in peace, receive $7,000 each month, a vehicle, a driver, and a helper at the home. And this was done to ensure that current and succeeding generations appreciate this contribution to the people. We will not have agreed with certain policies and programs, but we celebrated the fact that they made their contribution as leaders of this country. And it's important for our society to recognize that, Mr. Speaker. And we can speak to many other things, whether it's naming of buildings. Mr. LeBlanc was but 1 year old. And it took us, myself as Prime Minister, to name the first edifice, the first structure, anything in LeBlanc's name, by naming the West Coast Road, the E.O. LeBlanc Highway. And I'm just saying so, Mr. Speaker, to remind us of what this party has done. And of course, we recognize the heroic struggles of Pierre Charles. I will not speak of Pierre Charles before Prime Minister, but I will speak of Pierre Charles from being Prime Minister. It was Pierre Charles who took the decision, Mr. Speaker. The very courageous decision, because as you know, the Dominican Labour Party, ideologically, was opposed to what we call the Washington Consensus. We were opposed to the IMF and the World Bank and the positions in imperialism and colonialism. And it would be unheard of in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s, because we ourselves wrestled with this view within the party and with the government when we decided to go with the IMF. But we, Mr. Peters, felt, and we stood by him and said that we had to do that. We said he'd rather lose the elections and to save Dominic. And we set aside, and Peters should set aside his ideological views. Because at the end of the day, the Prime Minister has to direct accordingly. And he directed accordingly that we go to the IMF and enter into a standby arrangement in the first instance, and then a structural adjustment program. It was tough. It was difficult. And he remained courageous, committed to this, and always promised the nation. He always promised the nation that at the end of the day, we'll have a more solid Dominic, a more structured economy, and more disciplined fiscal policies and fiscal programs that could guide the country to future. So whatever we are seeing today, Mr. Speaker, the foundation was laid by Pierre Charles as Prime Minister. Because without the restructuring of the economy, we would not have been able to do certain things and get things in order. And when Pierre Charles came in as Prime Minister, as you know, the country was in serious challenges. Serious challenges. And I think we owe him and we credit him for this courageous decision, for remaining true in the face to make. But Pierre Charles always maintained that it was the right decision. And history has recorded it to have been the right and only decision to have been made in the greater good of the country. And so we're happy to be here today, Mr. Speaker, to add yet another honor to these two distinguished gentlemen. But I knew Pierre Charles and I knew Rosie Douglas very well. They were not for these things. It is left to us to impose it on them in their absence. But if they were with us, they would have said no. And for us in the party and the leadership of the party and the leadership of the government, the greatest honor that we are giving to them is to fulfill the philosophical foundations and principles of the Dominican Labour Party in respect to how we see the country. Is the whole principle of no one should be on the floor, while at the same time there should not be any glass ceiling. So yes, you can soar as far as you can go, but we must always ensure that those who are below, who are down, must be brought up. And you see it, Mr. Speaker, in the progressive the expensive but progressive policy programs of the government, the social protection programs, whether it's in housing, whether it's education, healthcare, the elderly, the youth. It is this government, Mr. Speaker, that introduced the DYBT, ensuring that those young people who leave school and who have a business idea could be assisted in financing his idea and turn it into reality. And hundreds of young people have gone through this program successfully and now in the private sector as small business owners, employing themselves, employing others. And in terms of our foreign policy, we've always maintained that we are friends of all, but satellites of Boris Johnson and the Prime Minister of Canada talking about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I said to Boris Johnson, we have been consistent in Dominica. You have not been consistent. We were opposed to the Iraq invasion. We were opposed to the invasion of Libya. We were opposed to all of these things. While you supported it. But we're always against the issue of sanctions because we always believe that sanctions does not meet the objective of those who are imposing it. And Rosie would have said the same thing. And of course, Petrus would have said the same thing. We have been consistent in this. So, it is their legacy that we have to continue. And their legacy is about being close to the people. That we are not masters of the people, but we are the servants of the people. We're not slaves, but we're not their masters. We are servants of the people. And that whatever we can do to the good of each other, that we should do it. And this is how both Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles went about effecting their leadership and representing the interests of the people on Dominica. So, in life, my final point, Mr. Speaker, in life, everything happens at its own time. The Bible is very clear on this. And so those who are questioning, why now? My question to them is, why not now? It is the Lord who decides when things happen. And he instructed me to go to the Parliament, because he recognized that it's not in the other paper, I had to amend the other paper. He instructed me to go to Parliament and move that. These two distinguished leaders of this country, two sons of the soil who sacrificed their lives, who died with their boots on at the service of the people of Dominica, be recognized with the Dominica's highest award in this country, the DAH. And my hope and prayer is that this will serve as a reminder to all of us in this country of the contributions and the sacrifices of these two gentlemen to Dominica's development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion is before the House for debate. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I advise to support and to say a few words. I'm rising before the Honorable Mr. Anderson because because along with the Prime Minister who just spoke, who actually spoke for all of us, but I have to say something. We're part of the what can be characterized in the history of politics in this country as the rebirth of the Labour Party under the leadership of Pierre Charles and before, of course, Rosie Douglas. Mr. Speaker, I believe what is happening here today underscores the importance of what it means to give your life to humanity, what it means to understand that within the capitalist system, which we all are part of, but the capitalist system, when you look at it by way of its operation, is not fair to the poor an average person. And Honorable Rosie Douglas, may his soul rest in peace, understood that. He wasn't a communist, as people say, but he understood that the government, a political party, had to ensure that its programs were concerned about uplifting the poor people. Mr. Speaker, I had no plans to have been involved in politics. To be quite honest with you. For matter of fact, to be quite blunt, I always had a cynical view about politicians. And those of us, in social science, etc., in history, for some reason, always had that view. Even if I was the head boy of my school at the university, the president of the biggest student body, but I never saw myself as being involved in national politics at that level. But in 1999, Mr. Speaker, while I was in Maryland, eating a broth with Mr. Packett, Bernard Packett, who was a lawyer, we were eating a broth, Gerald Cochon, Mr. Speaker. Big snort. Yeah, yes. Well, dumpling. When I used to dumpling, when I used to dumpling at the time, and who voice was it? Honorable Roosevelt Douglas. And he said to me, I understood that you are the man from Mao. I thought that was a big joke. That's what I'm saying. Because I had no interest in politics. I saw myself as a career police officer, etc., to be kind of honest with you. And then, so when I returned, Mr. Speaker, Roosevelt and my mother-in-law, big friend of mine, she said, oh, the mother, friend of mine, no. And then I got a letter from the current Prime Minister, who he and I taught together at the State College. And I still was not convinced, because I was not into that thing, to be quite honest with you. But Mr. Speaker, in speaking to Rosie and seeing what he stood for, we spoke several times. And then what actually caused me to make a shift, on the 3 weeks to the election, when the election was called, because I resigned at least when the election was called, which was madness, and Rosie was actually saying, well, that guy was a brave guy. But Mr. Speaker, what Labour Party is today, what Dominica is today, by way of the social advancement that we have made, how we have touched the lives of so many people, most of the poor people of this country, is as a result of the sacrifice of Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles. And it demonstrates to us, and I use the word demonstrate because we should take it in the current tense, what it means to be representing people. It's not about yourself. It's about fighting, standing for something. More importantly, being moved by the spirit of charity for the poor and the less fortunate. And that is what I believe, Mr. Speaker, Rosie actually exemplified. And fighting at all times for the maladjusted in society. And I'm so pleased, Mr. Speaker, though I was skeptical and cynical about the process, that I took the chance, and in the spirit of fighting for country, to have been part of the process then. But what we have seen, and I want to send a message to a number of people who have been saying and speaking and talking about the Labour Party as the party from the vision of Rosie Douglas. Mr. Speaker, at absolutely no time in our social and political advancement in this country, we have seen that level of charity and humanity demonstrated by any government in the history of this country. In housing, in education, he believed, and I believe we should be moved by that. Nice roads are good things, but the knowledge you carry in your head, a nominal value cannot be assigned to that. And that can be more important than the materialistic things that we see. Because when you're educated, you have a skill. You're educated for the global world, Mr. Speaker. And I believe that I was going to say myself, but I'm not a young guy anymore. For you young politicians in government and the opposition, and those who are aspiring to be members of parliament elected, must emulate what Rosie stood for. The people fighting for the people all the time and country first. Before you, he understood that. Mr. Speaker, Pierre Charles, I believe the Honorable Prime Minister so brilliantly crystallized what he stood for. And before I move into Pierre Charles, I must say and I must admit that I'm here today because of Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles. Because, Mr. Speaker, it was not easy. The election was called in January of 2000. And all them fellas are talking about Square and Vince and stuff like that. What was he said to me, to us? And he was touched by that and moved, distraught and disturbed. There are a number of folks who are speaking loudly today, and they're talking about the Labour Party has departed from the principles of the Labour Party. He had to come to folks who are not educated by the Labour Party, who are not sent to Cuba. And he said certain things that he felt hurt. That when he asked folks, let's be serious there. Let us be serious there. Look, I really, Mr. Speaker, I really do not have appetite. And surely, for this level of hypocrisy, that's what I'm saying, unseriousness that is manifest in the behavior of some of us. And look, Vince there, he was in St. Martin. I did not know him. He could have been a pilot today. That's what I'm saying. It's a good thing. Right. I did not know him. Now, when he went to all the folks that he used to go to Cuba to bring money for while he was studying, he told us to us. All right? Secret, all right? And they were asked to contest the 2000 election. Fellows were asking for big money. I have the name and I believe that they asked for big money. Who asked for $400,000 and said, she could come out then. And he felt very much disturbed by that. Because they felt at the time that Labour Party could not have won the election. For matter of fact, let me just make it fundamentally clear here today. The St. Joe seat was seen as an impossible seat to have been won in 2000. The Mao seat was seen as an impossible seat to have been won. Let's be serious about that. And this guy left St. Martin, Dr. Henderson, and came down to St. Joseph to run this election because he believed in Rosie. The Prime Minister, 1999, he moved before us, made that sacrifice. And all fellows know, talking, that black must skirt at freedom rights. But you are never right. Educated, Mr. Speaker, because of the sweat of Rosie Douglas, and you refuse to run for the party, you have no moral authority, therefore, to point fingers at people who stood and fought with Rosie when the impossible was declared then to call us all kind of different names. And it's because of Rosie Douglas' hard work that the Labour Party is there. Everything you see happening in terms of housing, education, these were what Rosie Douglas fought for. Mr. Speaker, Pierre Charles. Pierre Charles. And before I move to Pierre Charles, it's sad because this Saturday night, I was by my mother in Mao. May her soul rest in peace. And I got a call. And it was the then late Prime Minister Rosie Douglas. And he said that he wanted us to meet next day at, I think, 8:40, I can't recall it the time, to discuss the Cadet Corps, because he was passionate about the Cadet Corps. He wanted to talk about Cadet Corps along with Vince and other people, right? And Gabriel Christian. When I was finished talking to him, I said to my mom, I found that his voice was very low, to be honest with you. And the Sunday, he heard about his passing. It was hard, you know what I'm saying? But out of that experience, we can learn from that and move from that. Mr. Speaker, it is difficult that you know somebody, you spoke with him just before he died, the office was next to his office, something like that, and he just passed on just like that at a very young age. But that's life. We have to understand and move by that. Mr. Pierre Charles, may his soul rest in peace. Very serious guy. Very serious guy. He told you what the photo, and he was not a big speaker, but he was a very serious person. And at the time when we went community to community, localities to localities, to speak about the financial realities of this country, and the fact that he was able to sell that message and to create the platform, he did not live to see the fruits coming out of this hard work. But the baton was passed on to a younger person with the stamina and the understanding of what had to be done to get Dominica away from the financial mess at the time and to get it traversing on a path towards prosperity. May the soul rest in peace. And I serve as the assistant, special assistant to both of them. For matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, for matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, for matter of fact, let me just say it, make it clear. When you drive to Campbell Road in Mao, you see the big river wall from the Pentecostal church coming down. All the way. That was the first project I did as a caretaker. And Pierre Charles gave me $500,000 in hard times to do that. But he told me, I know that you must be in that seat, which of course I did. And I owe it to both men. And I want to say that I'm immensely touched and moved by the generosity of the Prime Minister and the Labour Party administration to again insert a new chapter in the political history of this country by honoring two men who gave their lives to country. And they're not there today to see the benefit. One died at 58, one died at 49, Mr. Speaker. Young people, but the legacy will never end, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Henderson, you may be recognized by the chair. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg that you will forgive me if I may seem out of sorts, because this item on the agenda has sent me into deep reflection. And thinking about the contribution that Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles made to Dominica, but also the profound impact that they had on me as an individual, not as a politician, but as a person. Rosie Douglas' election as Prime Minister of Dominica in 2000 was an idea whose time had come. Rosie was a philosopher in his own way and could see things, visualize things that we couldn't see and we could not comprehend. But he was driven by a passion to improve people's lives. He believed in equality, equity, fairness, and justice. And the company he kept during his years as an activist, from his days as a student in Canada, something wrong that we are seeking to correct as well with the Canadian government, and he was deported out of Canada. But he stood up to the struggles of black people. Although having come from a family of privilege, his simplicity and his humility was something that was really uncharacteristic of someone who came from a family that one could say was a plantation owner. But Rosie felt that he had to dedicate his life to stand for those who could not stand for themselves. struggle for black people and civil rights in Canada, but in the United States. But most importantly, Ruzi became well known as a Pan-Africanist. He reached out, the war in Angola, the struggle in South Africa, in Libya. He found himself in the company of oppressed people. People were fighting for the rights just to be treated as human beings, for some dignity, the fighting up their apartheid in South Africa, and having played his part in mobilizing even Dominicans and black people from around the world to fight the regime in South Africa during those days. I recall it was about a month, 2 months ago, when someone who knew Ruzi very well in those days passionately spoke of his experience and the stories that they shared during those times, those struggles. And actually, he told me he was writing a book, and there would be a serious contribution on the life of Ruzi Douglas as a Pan-Africanist. And that is something that I'm looking forward to. So Ruzi Douglas came and inspired us. I remember growing up in St. Joe at the time, Freedom Party was the party in office at the time. And then I decided I was going to cast my vote to a Labour Party candidate who didn't stand a chance to win, but I wanted to stand with Ruzi because I remember as a teacher, when I became a teacher, I listened to Ruzi very intently. I didn't have a personal relationship. I didn't know Ruzi before that. But in the parliament, you would listen to Ruzi and Mike, and you learn a lot. They educate you, and they teach you about the world. And I decided to take a chance because I heard Ruzi talking all these great ideas. And I was trying to figure, boy, you guys been asking me if I could do this. And I said, boy, I'm not sure if I could win that election, but I want to follow Ruzi. So win or lose, I want to put my name on the ballot. I got to Dominica 2 months before elections. And as they say, the rest is history. But the interesting thing about that election in 2000 was that Ruzi Douglas came with such great ideas and no money to back it. And he had his opponents fooled, believing that he had means of financing a campaign that he could not finance. Eventually, at the end of the day, he had to go and take a loan. And he had to use his own property to secure a loan for the Labour Party. And he gave us, I remember we had 2 little cars, PD 485 and 484, the little Nissan that Ruzi gave us. And no, it was Nissan. This Nissan, so we got it from Acme Garage. And by the time Skerrit reached Vickers, his tires had finished. And then when Ruzi died, the bank called us and tell us, sorry, but Ruzi didn't pay for it. So we had to take the loan and continue paying for it. So contrary to what people believe, that Ruzi gave us some big gifts and lavish deals and packages, Ruzi didn't give us anything. And then when we had to campaign back then, you had to make your own shirts. I used to go buy Crazy Tea, collect a little money. All my partners would put together. We used to print, because those days I had just done computer science, so I was good on the computer, and I used to print little things and make your flyers with your paper and put it around and go around. And you had to do that. But Ruzi had an idea, and people were so inspired by that. Now, importantly, most of the Labour Party didn't believe I could win in St. Joe. I remember standing on the highway close to Nurse Prevost there, and a fella from Portsmouth stopped there and talked to me and tell me, boy, you're wasting your time. A good Labourite. You're wasting your time, you can't win that. But when Ruzi came down to St. Joe for that convention, I think that was it. I think everybody realized that although statistically we should not have won St. Joe, and by the way, that is a funny thing. I hear a lot of talk, and even in the Labour Party, people making up their own history and writing their figures. But they can check go back. Go check the electoral results of 1995 and 2000. There was no reason for Labour Party to win St. Joe, because Doreen Paul had defeated my cousin Pippin, Jefferson Pierre, and at the time Wilmot Shillingford by enough votes that even though both votes combined, they could not have defeated Doreen Paul. She had a huge margin. And we came and we did it because of the idea of Rosie Douglas. Because we felt we want to give Rosie a chance to do some of the things that he said he was going to do. People were excited by that. And that is where the whole idea about money doesn't win elections came. So, Mr. Speaker, Rosie Douglas contributed tremendously to Dominica. He made us dream, he made us think, and he also challenged us. The final thing about Rosie, I will say, that he believed so much in empowering people that even in the 1990s, Rosie was able to get scholarship for Dominican students to study in China. Some people may not know that. We have one graduate in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs up to today. Rosie was able to get students to study in China. And of course, the Cuban program was very active. We had gotten secure scholarships in Cuba since the 1970s, and we ensured that Dominicans were able to pursue studies there because he believed in that. And all foreign policy today, I feel proud to say that as the one charged with the responsibility, that it still reflects a lot of Rosie's thinking. It still reflects a lot of Rosie's thinking. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very happy to support this resolution before the House. And just to remind the public, this Labour Party, we also dedicated a school to Rosie Douglas. So just in case we think that we've not, done anything to recognize the contribution. And well, of course, and we'll come to the airport where we shared it with Piero and Rosie. So we have always embraced those who have sacrificed to build this institution and to help to contribute to Dominica's development. Unfortunately, did not have much time with us. I remember once we were in Parliament and Rosie came there with, I don't want to lie, a green tie, a brown jacket, and a yellow pants. Blue shirt, no, it wasn't blue. It was some funny color shirts. And I went next to him and I say, Rosie, RBD left that in his will for you, man. I will not tell you what he answered me. But, that is the kind of guy that really was just a free spirit. He just was anxious to pursue his vision, his ideas, and didn't care about anything else. And Mr. Speaker, the one that makes me more emotional is Pierre Charles, not just because 20 years later, I succeeded him in a way, now representing the Grand Bay constituency. But when I came into politics as a young politician, and some people seem to forget I was young too, I came in at 28, and I shared a ministry that was once one ministry, and I remember Earl Williams used to laugh at us, say we had to lamote his ministry just to give me a piece, but they had to share it. Sorry, I'm not going to translate, but I think there are some of you in there that may not know listening what the expression means. So basically, Communications, Works and Housing was one ministry in 1999. And in 2000, they gave me the housing and planning part of it. But we were in the same area, the same office. So Pierre Charles was on one side, and we had an adjoining door, which was the PS office. Traditionally, there was always an adjoining door between the minister and the PS, so that they could easily interact. So they gave me the other piece next to, I see my secretary there. My secretary when I was in housing, I wouldn't tell you who she is, but she's a prominent civil servant. So we shared those offices, so we're very close. We're very close. We spent a lot of time together. So he had a profound impact on my political ideology, if you can call it that, although those days is a very loaded phrase. But it's the stories that he shared, the selflessness, the spirit of community, and we were both Boy Scouts. I guess maybe we had that in common. So we shared a lot. And interestingly, we went to China in 2000. We had no diplomatic relations at the time. So Pierre and I did a few things together, and that one was crazy because we had no diplomatic relations with China, and we found ourselves in Guangzhou. I remember that well, in 2000, it was June of 2000. We went to a conference in Taipei, and we found ourselves in China and Hong Kong. And then we traveled to Japan together. At the time, I remember I was Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, and we traveled to, he became Prime Minister, and we traveled together at the time. So we shared a lot. And I said this is emotional because it was because of Pierre Charles that I perhaps had an insatiable thirst for pursuing my own academic qualifications because of a sad story that happened in this house. During austerity, things were so bad, we used to present budgets and not debate them because we had nothing to say. So as soon as the presenter presents, we were anxious to wind up because really we couldn't defend an austerity budget. And I remember there was one budget where a member of the House who was once a Labour Party man himself and benefited from Labour Party education in Cuba, stood up and called Pierre Charles uneducated fool. And Piero, in our adjoining offices, told me that was the most hurtful thing somebody said to him publicly. And that's coming from a man who grew up in Lale. So the man can take care of himself. He's used to that rough and tumble community. And he said why it was so hurtful is because this is a guy, he used to bring food and stuff to money to in Cuba when he got the benefit of the free education that the Labour Party gave him in Cuba, because Piero at the time was responsible for supervising the students in Cuba, supporting them. That he was pulled up several times in Barbados. Back in those days, things were bad. Became unable to go to the US. They were blacklisted because they were part of the revolution supporting Cuba. And the guy really, years later, laughed at Piero. Piero told me he decided not to go to Cuba or the US where all his siblings were because he felt that need to just serve, to just be of service to his community in Grand Bay and Dominica. He left his job as a teacher. I think it was at Teachers College during the days of the unrest in Dominica and decided he would join the Alliance. And he became a senator as a young man and abandoned teaching because he felt this is what he wanted to do. Selflessness, service. And a guy stood up on the other side and he sought to ridicule the man that helped to form him. And I decided nobody's going to ever throw this at me. And in spite of everything, I am going to pursue. And according to a good friend, Nuka, press on, MC. No matter how the tides turn, we will press on. And Pierre Charles taught me that and left that message with me. And the need for people to stand on their feet and to be selfless. The man was a farmer, a real farmer, going to his farm and pushing on, in spite of being a member of parliament. And even when he became prime minister, he still felt that need to do some of the things that he used to do before becoming prime minister. And when he stood up in a cabinet meeting and he said that, gentlemen, we used to have ladies man those days. I am, if you get off the cabinet at the time, we didn't have women ministers. And he said, no matter what, if it means we are going to lose this election, it is fine. But we have to press on with these reforms because it is better to save the country and to lose an election. Dominica was that important to Piero. And that's why I feel sometimes it was underrated. Piero's contribution to Dominica has been underrated. And the story's never truly been told because he was really determined. I tell you, a lot of us had our reluctance. 4% levy on civil servants, taking from people's salary, reducing the public service by 10%, closing offices overseas, all our missions got hit. things were really tough. Things were bad. Things were bad. As a parent, you had nothing to show. You couldn't do a project. Today, people have all these projects. You couldn't do a project. There was a spirit of kudme in the country. I remember in St. Joe, Shupa, and Kentish, and the rest of the guys, man, we would actually build roads. Kudme. Until young Roosevelt Skerritt was able to assist us and mobilize some funds from the French, and were able to do all the roads in St. Joe in concrete. But we started building. Coming every Saturday and Sunday and helping. We built 3 houses, I remember those houses well, for people who had no means, by coming together as a community and building for people on a Saturday and a Sunday. Gibbs and Emerson, them 7 days would come on the Sunday. The rest of them fellows would come Saturday because they like to go to church Sunday morning. And we would work. Preacher and all these fellows would come and help us divinate, and we would do these things. And people were, because we had a spirit back then of kudme, and things were bad. And today we have plenty. And we don't seem to remember those days or appreciate how far we've come. And I think today we are all enjoying the benefits of the sacrifices that Rosie and Pierre made. And then we seem to forget from whence we came. But, alas, I try to remind myself often enough. And I reflect occasionally, especially going to Grand Bay. And I remember Pierrot and the contribution that he made. And we will continue to recognize Rosie and Pierrot. We have the Pierre Charles Secondary School. We have the Pierre Charles Boulevard, which we've tried to upgrade and do a little nice thing to there, make it look pretty. The only missing part is the bust of Pierrot that we wish to install. That we have not forgotten. We started the process with a group in Canada, and we hope we can really realize that. It will be fitting to do it, crown it, and to continue pushing on, pressing on, to ensure that all people can be more empowered, more opportunities for more people, and that people will feel the need to contribute to their communities. Those of us who are in a position to, that we should never forget the less fortunate among ourselves. That is not only government to provide, but we too can make a difference in the lives of people who are less fortunate than us. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very happy to be part of this moment. I think it's an essential and very progressive step that the Labour Party is taking, and this Parliament, hoping that members on the opposition will see it fit to join us in this, and to ensure that the memory of those fallen brothers, those fallen heroes, can continue, and that our children will know, and Dominica will know the contributions that they've made as we move forward as a people, as a nation. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Charles Pemberton, you may
Mr.
proceed.
Speaker, I rise to give my firm support to this resolution. There's a famous phrase that goes, "It is not how long one has lived, but how well." And when we reflect on the life of the late Honorable Rosie Douglas and the accomplishments for working people, his fight for equity, justice, and to ensure that Dominicans who did not have the advantage or the opportunity, because you know in Dominica in those days, if you did not have a certain surname, you did not have the finance to pursue higher education. And Rosie stood for the ordinary man and ensured that many Dominicans could advance to a higher level of education, tertiary level education, university, postgrad, to be doctors, engineers. And Mr. Speaker, when we look at the work he did internationally, it shows that Rosie was not just a national hero, but an international hero, Mr. Speaker, who made his country proud wherever he went, Mr. Speaker. And we know the struggles and the challenges with Canada, and as Honorable Henderson said and PM said, we will seek to correct that, the wrong that has been done to outstanding Dominican. But Mr. Speaker, I was a student of the late Rita Olivache, my cousin, who stood firmly with Rosie Douglas on the rights of women, for justice, for equality. And so, Mr. Speaker, I understand the struggles that we had in our country at a very early age and why it was important for the Dominican Labour Party to be in power so that every Dominican, despite circumstance, could have a better opportunity in life. And that is what Rosie Douglas stood for and fought for, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when we reflect on the late Pierre Charles, who led Dominica during turbulent times, Mr. Speaker, and as you heard how he was ridiculed at times, sometimes we don't understand the pressures of our leaders and running a government with low finance, Mr. Speaker. So many people speak about Dominica as Dominica has oil and and a lot of resources that we export, Mr. Speaker, and not recognizing that we were heavily dependent on bananas. And once bananas collapsed, life became very difficult on our country, Mr. Speaker. And Pierre Charles, despite the ridicule, stood firm and made these sacrifices for us. And Mr. Speaker, I feel at times as a people we don't appreciate our struggles, we don't appreciate our history as a country, and we are quick to throw stones, Mr. Speaker. But there are men who sacrificed, and they didn't have to, Mr. Speaker. They had other alternatives, they had other opportunities. But they stood to fight for the ordinary working people of Dominica, Mr. Speaker. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of our Prime Minister and the Dominican Labour Party government, who has continued the hard work that Rosie and Pierre Charles started. And the only thing I want to say that we need to do more, our children need to know. Our children need to know the struggles of our country and the work of our national heroes, and it should form part of our curriculum. Because when you don't know history, you can be lost, and you can just follow the loudest man on the block. But we need to understand that Dominica has been through very turbulent waters. And today, when you look at what we have accomplished as a people, because of the hard work of our national heroes and the work that the Dominican Labour Party continues to do, we should be very proud as a people. Because if the men before us did not make the sacrifice, we will not be enjoying the benefits today, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I am very happy to support this resolution before the House. And I want to say, well done to the Dominican Labour Party for conferring this honor on the late Honorable Roosevelt Douglas and the late Honorable Pierre Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize Shepherd, but on Honorable Lockhart, you decide who want to yield. Okay, Honorable Lockhart, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I had no intentions of speaking on this resolution this morning, but the speakers before me got me so moved. The Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Vince Henderson, and Honorable Blackmore, their contribution to this resolution was superb and educational, Mr. Speaker. And so I'm here this morning to support the resolution before us, to honor both our former Prime Ministers, Honorable Rosie Douglas, and the Honorable Pierre Charles. Mr. Speaker, I was very young at the time when Rosie Douglas became the Prime Minister. Well, Honorable Blackmore is saying I'm still young. That's a compliment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. And what I remembered about Rosie Douglas was how charming he was. The people just loved him, just like they love Roosevelt Skerritt. He had a very infectious smile. Dimples, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, like dimples. And I always listened to his contribution in the House. At a very early age, I listened to Parliament. And I always listened to the Honorable Rosie Douglas. And Honorable Pierre Charles, as it relates to Honorable Pierre Charles, Mr. Speaker, my fondest memories of him is that he was very loved by the people of Granby. I recall there was a time that people were afraid to go into Granby because there were so many guns and so many shooting. And when Honorable Pierre Charles became Prime Minister, the people had so much respect for him that everything, all that was stopped. And so I want to say that this act of recognizing them, these two individuals, honoring them with the Dominica Award of Honor, is a very noble act by this Dominica Labour Party. And Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this resolution. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, I too want to rise to give support to the resolution before the House. And of course, being proud to come from the Portsmouth constituency and to represent and to say on behalf of my people already, thank you for conferring the honor. And Mr. Speaker, you cannot come to Portsmouth and not say Rosie. For good reasons and obvious reasons. He was well loved, as the previous speaker had said. And I know that once we move to pass, or once we agree to pass the resolution, that the Portsmouth people will be very proud. And it goes to show too, Mr. Speaker, Prime Minister and the others said it, the commitment to those who have gone before us and who have served us well, our national heroes. So I just wanted to add that tidbit. I can say a lot about Rosie Douglas and my own interactions with him, but I believe a lot have been said already and I need not delay. Also, Honorable Pierre Charles, who I didn't know intimately or personally, but just, again, the bravery that he displayed in the IMF decision to allow Dominica to be where we are today. I think it is more than an honorable thing that is being done here today. I just wanted to again say that I am pleased to support the motion of the resolution.
Yes, Honorable Coach.
Thank you, very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to, on behalf of the wonderful people of the Salve constituency, the biggest populated Kanago village on the island, space so far, support the resolution. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is this wonderful gentleman from 2000 who really added value to what is now considered a legacy or the foundation of Whitey Kubuli, Dominica. Establishing a department of Kainag Affairs in 2000. That will be remembered in the history of Dominica as a very, very important initiative by a government, especially a government that is post-colonial and an independent government. We know for a fact that the work done by these gentlemen is so important, and the legacy carried on for now the leadership of Honorable Roosevelt carried. And the department grew, and the leadership at the time, Kelly Grano, very powerful advocate for Carnago heritage, at the time Caribs, um, and led and also continued through his work, or the work of Ashton, his brother, and Cassius. And that evolution of that department into what we now know as the Ministry of Environment, kind of upliftment, constituency empowerment, and rural modernization. So Mr. Speaker, it is my job as a parliamentarian to remind the people of the constituency, the Sabe constituency, the important work that has gone into placing us as equal citizens of our nation. And I think sometimes we discount the importance of that legacy and that evolution. And at a time when the Canada people were still marginalized. And even while they were sitting in Parliament, and that the focus was not as intense as it was with the leadership of Lucy Douglas and Pierre Charles. And to say that I as a young person growing up, coming out of the local government, my dad being a Carnago chief, etc., understanding that government has a role to play, and the role of local government is also important. But knowing that within the constructs of a government, that a prime minister, the leadership would take on that people so seriously, and to ensure, because, Mr. Speaker, if you go through the history of indigenous peoples around the world, it is something that today they still cry about, that there are countries in the world where indigenous people live and do not have fair representation within the House of Parliament, or even in central government. And so it may seem very simple, because we get used to it over the last 25 years, that we have a stake, we have a say, we have a voice, but there are still people around the world, and First Nations, indigenous people, who cry for that which was set up in 2000, and cry for a voice, a desk, a seat in a space of governance. And I think I really want to celebrate this, Mr. Speaker. I really want to thank the Prime Minister for passing this resolution, or bringing it to the House, and hoping that that the people of Carnago descent will also celebrate this, because it is very, very clear that the philosophy of both Pierre Charles and Lucy Douglas understood the importance of indigenous people as marginalized people. And I want to support and to say to the Carnago nation, the Carnago people, that under the continued leadership of Roosevelt Douglas and Roosevelt Skerritt at present, that we will continue to see the Carnago community grow. And to say that even while we speak, there are a number of people who have benefited, even within the work of Rosie Douglas at the time, that people went to Cuba to study. And it is so important to celebrate this, because we have continued to build on a legacy that started off by this wonderful gentleman. And I am so happy to stand in this parliament to continue that legacy, and to continue to see the voice of the Carnago people be part of the conversation, especially as we continue to build a resilient country and continue to ensure that we remain relevant and to survive in the ever tough economic times. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable AG, proceed.
I am also going to rise to say just a couple of words. I hadn't planned, like I think most of the speakers, to contribute to this particular debate. I anticipated that probably the Prime Minister would say whatever needed to be said, and maybe one or two others, but with the number of speakers and the nature of what has been said, I think it would be remiss of me, as someone from Portsmouth, the same town as the late Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas, not to at least register on the record in a matter such as this a few words. I did not know the Honorable Pierre Charles very well at all. Obviously, I knew of him, but didn't know him personally. But I had knowledge and acquaintanceship with the Honorable Roosevelt Douglas, who I think, based on his lifestyle, based on how he approached things, I think for the purposes of this exercise, the House will forgive me for referring to him as Roosie, because that's what he was known as, and certainly from my association with him, what he was very comfortable with. He was not a man concerned with airs and graces, particularly, unless, of course, it was necessary for a particular purpose. I knew Roosie initially, socially, if you put it that way, on the basketball court and just around Portsmouth. He was, as has been said, a very down-to-earth, ordinary human being who wished to be seen in that way. And certainly, I think it was that personable characteristic of his that allowed him to be so loved and I think I could say respected by so many. If one thinks of the trajectory of Roosie's life, coming back to Dominica at a time when everybody who had progressive ideas was branded a communist, and particularly the elder members of the society were in trepidation of this communist who was going to close their churches, who was going to do all sorts of things. And it is absolutely astonishing that a person could come into a society where there's that level of prejudice against them and be able to turn it around in the way that he was able to do, not in one constituency, not in one area of a constituency, but pretty much, I think I can say, across the country. Rosie could go into any community in the country and be able to engage and enter homes, pretty much even the homes of people who originally would have hated him. That is the power of somebody who is able to have persistence and show empathy and get across to people who sometimes, even if they didn't agree with him, ultimately were able to accommodate him and felt comfortable with him and could engage with him. And so, Mr. Speaker, I think that this honor that the House is inviting Her Excellency the President, because ultimately it is the President who, according to law, has the authority to actually bestow such an honor. But I think the House is marking its respect, admiration, and view that these two stalwarts of Dominica should be recognized. And I think I'll just finally close, Mr. Speaker, by recounting the type of simple person that Rosie was. And I recall at that time, I didn't have the political connections that some of my colleagues had. I spent a number of years outside. But I do recall that from playing basketball on the basketball court, which is something that Rosie would do most afternoons when he was not otherwise engaged. At that time, it was Borough Square. We didn't have a basketball court, it was Borough Square, where the guys set up, a drum with concrete in it and a pole and a net, two ends, and you play basketball. And we used to go down there and take a sweat. He was notorious for his sweats with the guys on the square, on the block. But Mr. Speaker, I remember whilst I was in the UK, living in the UK, going to see Rosie on one of his trips when he was passing through London. And some of the colleagues here will be familiar. Rosie, in his simplicity, often would stay at the Victoria Hotel above the Victoria Station. Nothing grand, but going to see him there. On that particular occasion with, again, someone who stalwarts of the party, and certainly Portsmouth folks will know, Otis Cornelius Hyacinth. And we were in this room with Rosie chatting and so on, and just having a normal, ordinary chat. And then Otis had to leave at some point. And the simplicity of Rosie, his glasses at the time, had some issue with the screw. And he was, as he would sometimes refer to me as English, because both myself and my brother, God rest his soul, has passed on. But he was not somebody who was interested in the grandeur. He was comfortable with the people and being ordinary. He had, as Honorable Vince Henderson pointed out, he had ideas. He was, I would say, a motivator to get other people thinking and delivering. He'd give the ideas, he'd set the course, and he'd hand it over to others to take to go forward with that idea, that imagination, that vision. And that's how I remember him. And I want to stand and support wholeheartedly this resolution. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I do not want to belabor the point, but just to say, just to express my thanks to all those who contributed to the motion. Of course, those who did not speak, they're all in favor and support of this recognition of the two former prime ministers. And I believe that on the celebration of our 47th anniversary of independence, it is an appropriate time to bestow this national award posthumously on the two former prime ministers. Thank you very much.
This concludes the motion, the debate on the motion. I will now put the question. Be it resolved that this Honorable House hereby prays that Her Excellency Sylvanie Burton, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, do bestow upon the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the Honorable Pierre Charles the title of Dominica Award of Honor. And be it further resolved that the bestowing of this honor be duly memorialized and that a certificate copy of the minutes of this meeting be presented to the next of kin of the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles. And be it further resolved that henceforth that the said Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas and the said Honorable Pierre Charles shall be known and referred to in all official and other appropriate references and functions as the Honorable Roosevelt Bernard Rosie Douglas, DAH, and the Honorable Pierre Charles, DAH, respectively. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion has been approved.
Presentation of papers.
Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table. Invest Dominica Authority Annual Report 2024.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table. Anti-Money Laundering and Suppression of Terrorist Financing, Amendment Number 2, Code of Practice 2025, SRO 35 of 2025, and Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation, Audited Financial Statement for the period ended March 31, 2025.
Government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the later stage of the proceedings, I'll be taking all three stages of the bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement Act 2025, standing in my name on the other paper.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at a later stage of the proceedings, I'll be taking all three stages of the bill shortly entitled Financial Services Unit Amendment Act 2025, standing in my name on the order paper.
Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the later stage of the proceedings, I will be taking the second and third stages of the bill, shortly entitled Sperm Whale Reserve Act 2025, standing in my name on order paper.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the later stage of the proceeding, I will be taking all three stages of the bill shortly entitled The Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism Amendment Act 2025 and the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act 2025, standing in my name on the other paper.
Introduction of bills.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement Act 2025 be read the first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement Act 2025.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Financial Services Unit Amendment Act 2025 be read a first time.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Financial Services Unit Amendment Act 2025.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that the bill shortly entitled The Suppression of Financial Terrorism Amendment Act 2025 be read the first time.
Speaker.
Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism Amendment Act 2025.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled the Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act 2025 be read the first time.
I beg to second, Mr. Speaker.
Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Act 2025.
The bill has been read the first time.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement Act 2025 be read a second time, please.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to present the bill titled Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement Bill 2025. This bill represents a major and important step in strengthening the governance and integrity of our citizenship by investment program and ensuring that it continues to meet the highest international standards of due diligence, transparency, and accountability. In September 2025, the member states of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, which operate citizenship by investment programs, namely the Commonwealth of Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia, signed the agreement establishing the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority. This regional authority was conceived in recognition of the shared responsibility among participant states to maintain a credible, secure, and sustainable CBI framework and to respond collectively to evolving global standards relating to financial integrity, international security, and investor due diligence. The establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority gives institutional effect to the joint commitment made by OECS leaders to safeguard the reputation of our CBI programs, strengthen regional cooperation, and promote uniformity and transparency across the sub-region. It is yet another expression of our solidarity and collective action. Mr. Speaker, Dominica has been a pioneer and leader in the CBI space for several decades, and we have consistently demonstrated our willingness to adopt higher standards of regulation and compliance. This bill, therefore, proposes to confer the force of law upon the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship and Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement in our jurisdiction, thereby giving full domestic legal recognition to its provisions and empowering the authority to exercise regulatory oversight of CBI programs in accordance with its mandate. To facilitate transitional arrangements, existing agents, promoters, developers, and due diligence service providers will be allowed to reapply for approval to operate and comply with the new regional standards. A framework for offenses, penalties, and administrative fines has been included in the bill to ensure that there are clear and enforceable consequences for misconduct, non-compliance, or obstruction of the authority's functions. Administrative fines reach up to US $250,000, and continuing non-compliance may attract daily fines until the breach is remedied. This framework is intended to ensure deterrence, accountability, and adherence to highest professional ethical standards. Further, the bill makes provision for the government's financial contribution to the authority, including the payment of fees and charges related to services provided by CARICOM Impacts, which plays a key role in security, vetting, data management, and continuous due diligence. The bill also includes a sunset provision stipulating that it shall cease to have the force of law should all participating states terminate the program in accordance with the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement. As a regional regulator, the Eastern Caribbean Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority will have power to set and issue common standards which will be binding on all CBI units and licensees who do business under the CBI programs. The agreement will guide the processing and approval of applications, ensuring consistency and fairness in all participating jurisdictions. It also prescribes a maximum number of approved applicants per year as part of efforts to maintain the exclusivity and sustainability of the regional programs. In addition, provisions relating to residency and physical presence requirements and change of name are incorporated to enhance the legitimacy of the framework. The provision of a residency period for successful applicants will serve to establish a stronger link with our countries. We regard this as an opportunity to better leverage the talent, skills, business acumen, and capital of persons who have acquired Dominican citizenship under our CBI program. It will boost our tourism sector and bring additional opportunities for our economy and our people in respect of taxi operators, tour operators, hotels, Airbnbs, and restaurants, among others. The change of name regulation harmonizes the process for legal name changes by citizens who obtain citizenship through investment in participating OECS states. This measure is designed to enhance transparency and traceability of CBI citizens and prevent abuse of the system. The agreement goes further by setting out clear guidelines for background checks and due diligence. It mandates the engagement of independent, internationally accredited due diligence service providers and provides for the oversight and audit of these services by the authority, ensuring that every application undergoes rigorous, multi-layered scrutiny. It provides for the collection of biometrics, a key safeguard to verify the identity of all applicants and to minimize the risk of identity theft and fraudulent representation by illicit actors. This move will better enable us to do continuous due diligence, thereby reducing the risk of abuse after the granting of citizenship. To strengthen financial transparency, the agreement provides for the establishment and management of a designated escrow account with strict controls over the receipt, use, and disbursement of funds generated under the programs. It also establishes mechanisms for dispute resolution under the purview of the authority, promoting fairness and accountability. Mr. Speaker, as we survey the length and breadth of Dominica, the footprint of the CBI program is there for all to see. It has been a key financing source for advancing our social and economic development and building climate resilience. When we have been hit with unexpected economic and climatic related shocks, it is this program that has helped us to carry on and keep building and rebuilding our country. For these reasons, it is right, fitting, and appropriate that we are taking this significant step to coordinate and protect this vital program, which has brought so many benefits to the people of Dominica. I am pleased, Mr. Speaker, to note that the agreement on which this bill is predicated has benefited from extensive consultation here in Dominica and across the region. In Dominica, persons with whom the Interim Regulatory Commission met included the Attorney General, the Financial Secretary, the CBI unit, local agents, developers, Honorable Jesmo Paul Victor, Honorable Anthony Charles, the Dominica Labour Party, the United Workers' Party, Bankers Association, and members of civil society via a town hall meeting. Mr. Speaker, the draft agreement was circulated for public comment in early July, and I thank those who submitted comments to enhance the final product. I also wish to inform this Honourable House that significant consultations were held with our international partners on the agreement, including the United States of America, the United Kingdom, and the European Commission. Indeed, our international partners have indicated they welcome and support this development. I also take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to commend and thank the Interim Regulatory Commission, the IRC, led by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, for the coordination and execution of this important exercise. In particular, I express thanks to the Governor of the Central Bank, Mr. Timothy Antoine, and the Director of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, Dr. Didicus Jules, for their invaluable contribution and guidance. I also want to place on public record in the Parliament my appreciation to my fellow colleagues in the member states, all of whom worked diligently to ensuring that we're able to come up with a final document that satisfies the needs and aspirations of all. Mr. Speaker, through this legislation, we reaffirm Dominica's position as a responsible and proactive member of the global investment migration community. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, this bill aligns our legal framework with that of our OECS partners and demonstrates our readiness to embrace regional oversight and collective accountability. It is a practical expression of our regional cooperation at work, strengthening our shared institutions and reinforcing public confidence in our Citizenship by Investment program. I am personally pleased, Mr. Speaker, that finally we as an OECS were able to come together and have this agreement signed among ourselves. As a matter of fact, the record will show, Mr. Speaker, that in 2015, I proposed this very same approach to my fellow colleagues. At the time, unfortunately, only Antigua agreed to proceed, but I'm happy that with current leadership within the OECS, we're able to advance this agreement and place our CBI program above the test of scrutiny by anyone, Mr. Speaker. I therefore commend the bill to this Honourable House and invite members to lend their full support to its passage. Thank you very much.
The bill is before the House for debate. Yes, Honorable Dr. Henderson, you may proceed. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, earlier in recognition in petitioning Her Excellency the President to bestow the Dominica Award of Honor on Roosevelt, Douglas, and Pierre Charles, of blessed memory. I spoke in my contribution briefly of, and I'm sure as did the Prime Minister, of our IMF program in 2000, in the early part of our first term, and the hard decision that we had to make. Today before the House, we debate the citizenship by investments regulatory authority agreement bill, which can be likened to an IMF type program. I guess you're wondering where I'm going with this. But just give me a little, I'll explain. You see, an IMF structural adjustment program, whether it's a standby arrangement or the full structural adjustment program, is trying to fix a situation that has become very difficult to manage by itself. In this case, a fiscal challenge, unable to meet your commitment to your creditors, unable to pay your staff, and that sort of thing. So, what we have before, but you have to do it. In order to get access to funds from the IMF, from the World Bank, and to keep your creditors happy, you have to do it. But also, you may still have to fix your problem on your own anyway. Somebody doesn't have to tell you to fix it and then they will help you out. Because you realize it's a problem. Because if you can't pay your bills, you can't pay your bills. So whether or not somebody's offering you money to fix your business, you have to fix it anyway. And that was something we said very often during the austerity program with the IMF. That some changes had to be made. Because we had inherited a situation that was so bad that was created by the WP with the commercial borrowings, especially 16% and all of those things. Those days, FS look at you like you're crazy if you come to have more than 2% interest rate on borrowings, right? So we had the situation that was created, and the aggressive programs that were embarked upon by the United Workers' Party, and at the time the demise of the banana industry. They were not able to generate enough revenue to meet the commitments of the state. What we have before us today is something that we would have had to do anyway. But we can't pretend that the EU is saying on one hand, hey guys, I think you got to do something here. The US is saying the same thing, that we need to strengthen this program. And the UK. But I wish to add, the situation was not just a situation that we created. It was the reality of a program that had grown so huge, so fast, that it is important that, and you heard the Prime Minister said since 2015, he made the recommendation, that we have to strengthen this program. So what is before us today are some measures that I'm sure there are agents and developers that are saying, man, our developers shouldn't do that because. But they have to balance it with, maybe, do you want the program to continue to survive? Or do you want to have it your way that you used to have it before? It's a difficult choice to make. And I remember those debates on austerity. But this is the same thing. So developers are, I know, very concerned. But the good news about this, the good news about the agreements that is being put forward by the OECS countries with citizenship by investment programs, that is to say, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia, that we are saying we are coming together to, among ourselves, to adopt some regulations to govern the program, to ensure its survival, that we must ensure that this thing remains, because it is such a significant revenue stream for all these countries. Significant. Now, in my days as a young revolutionary, although I used to cut my hair a little nicer those days, just sort of a contradiction, I feel now that, the Nazis come in and they will eventually come when I, move on. But the fact is, I would be saying, these guys are the colonizers, the people who created the problems for us. They kill our banana industry, and everything we try, they're killing it, and we should stand up to them. Yeah, you could say that. But when you have the responsibility to make decisions for a country, you don't have that luxury. You have to survive to live, to fight another day. And this is clearly an attempt by us to live to fight another day. But this is something that we need to do anyway. And I can tell you, and I will just to give you an idea, I'm not going to quote the exact figures, but when this program started in 1992, and by the way, sometimes people forget this program has a history, the Citizenship by Investment Program. It had different names. We used to call it economic citizenship back then. The Greystone program, project, according to a friend of mine. When we had the La River Hotel, project, was the first of its kind. And the program started at $35,000 US for citizenship. That's how it started. And passports were distributed in parts of the world, like Hong Kong. They were distributed, actually. You apply and you get a passport. That is the kind of program we had. Then we moved to the re-engineered economic citizenship program under the UWP. Remember that. I think it went up maybe to 70,000 or something like that. Wasn't much more. And they started this, expanded it. But still, the numbers annually were pretty small. 20, 30, 40. And then we came in 2000. The program took a hit. The numbers went down. And we decided we were going to learn from the experiences of the Lai River project, which is still very controversial, and the problem created by the UWP's re-engineered program, especially with Russians and Iranians. You remember the long story about the Iranians and so forth. Some we got ourselves involved in that created some problems for us as well. And remember, we lost visa-free access to Canada at the time because of the UWP re-engineered economic citizenship program. So sometimes people seem to forget their history, but that wasn't a long time ago. It was the UWP actions with Iranians at the time that led to Canada putting visa restrictions on us. So, some of the young people here, you may not know that. We used to go to Canada without a visa. I remember my first trip to Canada in 1993. Gosh, it was a long time ago. There was no visa. My brother and I went to Canada, and no visa. It was a long time ago. And then 1999, they imposed the visa restrictions on us. And then, so the numbers were still small. By 2010, 11, we were doing 200 a year. When our neighbors, St. Kitts and Nevis, were doing in the thousands, sometimes 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, back then. They had a massive program. We were still moving on very slowly, very slowly. Yeah, I remember, you remember there was a time we used to go out to do interviews. The numbers were so small. I mean, that was manageable. You could do that. And then the program grew when we got the introduction of the range project, and aggressively we started promoting Dominica. I remember going to Hong Kong back in those days, and people, when you tell them about Dominica, they would try to understand, well, what are you talking about? Which country is that? Much less for a citizenship by investment program. They knew nothing about it. And these were people who were in this business for a very long time. And then we saw an exodus of agents who started with the Canadian program and were introduced to the St. Kitts and Nevis program in the Caribbean, started promoting Dominica. And I remember, Duncan Stowe at the time, myself, we had Dr. Ali, who was a partner of Alec Lawrence. Sometimes it's just us who would go to those events. And at the time, we would go and try and push in, and we'd go to China, we'll go to Bangkok, go to Hong Kong, all over the place. Sometime I remember we used to go to China and we'll do 10 provinces in 2 weeks, every day promoting and trying to get people to know about the program. So the program started growing. By 2014, 2015, the numbers just blew up. So when we had 1, 2 little due diligence to do, little files to process, you had the time to put on those. So then when we realized the numbers were growing, we started increasing the requirements, the regulations. Then we went to a new portal. I remember when we introduced a portal and that we're able now to get applications online, which saved us after the passage of Hurricane Maria, because we were still accepting and processing because the data was stored somewhere else. So while we had no power in Dominica and everything mashed up, they could still actually go online and process from our London High Commission or somewhere. So we had these things going. So as it started growing, we started putting more requirements. The due diligence, there was no due diligence when we came in. The UWP Reengineered program had no due diligence as we know it today. We were the ones who introduced due diligence. And we started engaging companies from reputable companies from Canada, from the UK, from the US. These were the companies doing the due diligence for us. And we started growing the program. So a number of things started growing because the numbers started to increase. And it required a greater infrastructure. We created the units, the CBI units, fully staffed and able to go out there. Prime Minister used to go out to Dubai to promote. We even brought artists from Dominica who celebrated independence. Well, Dice didn't go, I don't think, right? And it was something that was we worked to. And then now we found ourselves with projects being financed by the CBI, tremendous amount of projects. And we have seen numbers that have grown, far and wide. Now, countries, on the other hand, it's important to add to the conversation that the countries with which we have diplomatic relations, friendly relations, and sometimes serve as our development partners, like the EU, have raised concerns about not Dominica's program per se, but about what they call golden passports. They have golden visas, like some of the European countries had. Malta, Cyprus, they had these golden visas. And I understood the US now has its special golden version of a golden visa. But they had the EB-5 before that. EB-5 is a path to citizenship through investment. So they have had this program for a long time. So what we have seen is a concern raised by these countries because they feel that they have given us free access to their countries and therefore they should have a say on how we give other people our citizenship, how we bestow our citizenship on non-naturally born Dominicans, who by law are Dominicans, of course. So we have worked with them. They've raised their concerns. What we're seeing there is a culmination of all these countries that I mentioned, the 5 countries in the OECS, with citizenship by investment programs, who have worked with our partners, the EU, we have worked with the US, the UK, in particular, those 3 countries in particular, and to see how we could come up with some rules. And I want to add, those rules contained in this agreement are essentially codifying some of what we're already doing. In other words, we make it into law the things that we're already doing voluntarily. Right? The due diligence, for example, as I mentioned, if you check the agreement, I mean, the bill is a simple bill, it's a very short bill. The details are in the agreement. And you will see in the agreement the whole process or the processes that we are codifying, most of which are being done. The new ones, there are a few new ones. And essentially 48, I think there's Article 48 that speaks to a genuine link. So that someone who applies for citizenship must show that they have a genuine link to Dominica over a period of 5 years. Either by being present for 30 days. Well, by being present for 30 days. That is mandatory. Over that period. And also to know about the country. It's almost the civics that you do when you become an American citizen or Canadian citizen, and you have to do this test and so forth. So there is a mandatory requirement as well for that. There is also, very importantly, an authority of ministers, a council of ministers, in addition to the authority. In Article 12, that is very, very important to help for the governance across the region. Now, I said some of the things are really codifying what we're doing because we have this common system of security. The GRCC, we have impact, that we have to share information, that when an application is submitted, after the due diligence has been done, it has to go through that process. So we are also strengthening that. In addition, the database that is going to be created, where every application, the details on every applicant will be housed, but all member states will have access to that database. So you know if there's an applicant who's been rejected in St. Kitts and Nevis, automatically will be rejected in Dominica, St. Lucia, Grenada, or St. Lucia, that's Antigua, will be rejected as well. So this is very important because what it does is to say to us that, hey, we're in this together, we're going to work together as we have, especially as an OECF, as OECF member states. We have worked together in so many areas that we are going to do this collectively to ensure that we keep the same levels, the same standards, the same requirements, regulations across the board. And there are fines associated with violations. Another very important area that is covered in the agreement, which is of importance, is to ensure that all applicants, licensees, and other authorized, registered, or regulated persons in Part 4, it speaks to the requirements, vetting everyone who is involved in the program. A fit and proper person that we'll speak about later, Dr. Mack, in one of the bills before the House. We have to ensure that they're a fit and proper person with the resources to do what they say they're going to do. So we have to ensure that they meet the requirements, they have the resources. One of the things that I'm hoping, PM, that we can emphasize is the presence on island with an office that's operating that can employ Dominicans, something that we were trying to push years ago, that I hope we can in fact get this done, so that all registered agents will have an office here in Dominica. Go and rent a building in Roseau, or you can come to Grand Bay. We have some nice properties there too. You know, rent, employ people, pay your utility bills, and get money in the country. And this is why I'm saying that all is not lost. There are opportunities this will create, Minister of Tourism. We now need to look at the best routes to get to Dominica from the various parts of the world, especially where most of these applications come from. Because if all these people have to come here for 30 days in the 5 years, this is an opportunity that's been created. And perhaps you should even be selling them real estate. Let them own an apartment, own a property, do something. So that is another means of generating more revenue into the country. And you never know, because of that genuine link, someone might find it easier to make an investment in the country and to come to see how the investment is doing from time to time. So they kill two birds with one stone. There are opportunities that can be created in these new regulations that we are debating. Because while the numbers may be affected, I'm not going to pretend, while the numbers may be affected, the overall benefit could be in our favor, and we need to manage it well. Mr. Speaker, there will always be the need for citizens around the world to look for a second passport for several reasons. Several reasons. Some have no citizenship. Some may want to reorganize their businesses. Some of them may just want an option in the event. So this is why I'm saying, if people are looking for an option in the event, we need to provide more services to them. I know at one point we used to encourage them to get addresses here, to apply for other documents, to be part of the system. I think now with the genuine link that we're looking at, we should revisit those areas, formalize them, regulate them as well, so that more people, more Dominicans can benefit from the Citizenship by Investment program, not only through government investments, but because of the economic activities that will be generated and created as a result. Mr. Speaker, it is important to highlight that the agreement among the member states will not take effect unless and until all 5 countries have ratified this agreement. So Dominica may be ahead. We are passing this bill in the Parliament today, but the effective date will be by order of the minister. So the minister will determine when it is appropriate to give effect to the agreement, but the agreement itself will not come into effect until the 5 ratifications have been deposited to the appropriate authority, which is created by the agreement. So I think we have to pursue this, perhaps not enthusiastically, but all the same, we must ensure that we give support to this bill so as to safeguard the investments that CBI has afforded us over the years, to protect our borders, to ensure that we play a very important role in our international obligations and responsibilities, and to ensure that we continue, that is to say, Dominicans, will continue to enjoy not only the direct benefits of this program, but some of the liberties that we enjoy. I'm sure all of us were equally alarmed at the leaked information published in the New York Times a few months ago about countries for which the United States were going to ban holders of their passports or their citizens from entering the US. Equally, we were concerned with a decision that came from the European Parliament, approved by the MEPs earlier this year, in June of this year, and again ratified in October of this year. And I'm sure that the nervousness that it created for all of us and how our lives could be affected as a result. And this is why I said this can be likened to an IMF program. You really wish you didn't have to do it, but you have to. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the bill.
Yes. I recognize Honorable Poppins-Skerrit and Honorable Blackmore and then Honorable Paris. That's the order. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I seek your permission to refer to my notes.
Permission granted. You may proceed.
Sure. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give support to the bill entitled Citizenship by Investment Regulatory Authority Agreement, which was presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. I want to commend him, as well as his 4 other colleague prime ministers, for this consensus document. Mr. Speaker, just last month, we have seen the culmination of the year's efforts by our very own Prime Minister as well, with responsibility for free movement and labor at the CARICOM level. Mr. Speaker, Dominica is proud to be a leader on the movement of people across the globe, and in particular the Caribbean region, and have implemented the free movement of citizens from CARICOM countries such as Belize, Barbados, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. But most profound, Mr. Speaker, is our migrant investment program, our citizenship by investment program. Dominica stands out. Under this Labour government, we have successfully transformed the migrant investment into a world-class best practice, which held the top position in the world for several years, Mr. Speaker. So today, Mr. Speaker, our CBI program has results to show in its value and prominence among global giants. But there's nothing unusual, Mr. Speaker, about migrant investment. Many countries have blended immigration with investment to create jobs, to transfer technology, and to build infrastructure. It is important to note that similar programs exist in North America, Europe, and several countries around the globe. Dominica's program initiated in 1993, and it has stood the test of time under this government and has been recognized as a world-class model for several years. But more important than any ranking is the evidence on the positive impacts on the lives of our people of this country. And this is why, as a Minister of Housing, I say thank God for the CBI program. I say thank God that we are able to use the funds, the proceeds from the CBI, to lift people up and out of poverty. Not in theory, but the evidence is there. In keys, in homes, in land, in titles, and roofs that will withstand any storm, any Category 5 hurricane, Mr. Speaker. Take Bellevue Chope, for example. Millions have been invested to resettle the people of Petit Savan after Tropical Storm Erica. Families are now living in hurricane-resilient homes. This is what CBI is doing for us, translated into dignity and assets into the hands of our people. From a housing lens, Mr. Speaker, the results are unmistakable. Just look across Dominica. 2 handing over ceremonies within the past month. Construction from the Capuchin to Kashaku. Mr. Speaker, 240 homes being built right now, hurricane-resilient homes. In Grand Bay alone, 96 homes, a hurricane shelter, community center, a church, 26 commercial spaces, roads and infrastructure, magistrates' court, fire station. This is proof of CBI working on the grounds and in impacting the lives of our people. The CBI reach goes further because it's not just in housing, it's also helping in agriculture, in manufacturing, in tourism, in geothermal, small business. In truth, every sphere of our economy and society has felt its lift. So this is not a slogan, it's a development engine. And today, there's no denying that its benefits are visible, it's measurable, and it's life-changing of the people of Dominica. So, Mr. Speaker, success is no excuse for us to just stand still. The fact is that the global environment is changing, the standards are rising, and scrutiny is intensifying. And as a small developing island state, we cannot afford reputational risk. The region has a proud record of acting collectively in the public interest, whether in health, central banking, telecom regulation, or through the OECS. And today, we carry that same spirit into migrant investment. This bill does 3 essential things, Mr. Speaker. First, it strengthens our governance and our accountability. It gives legal force to a common regulatory framework for CBI implementation, which has clear rules, consistent standards, and firm oversight. It hardwires our best practices, enhanced due diligence, fit and proper tests, audit trails, and strict penalties for breaches. It moves us beyond our personalities and preferences to systems that are predictable, professional, and resilient. Secondly, it protects our national interests while deepening our genuine links. This bill provides residency requirements and reporting. And thirdly, it secures the development impact by reinforcing programs, discipline escrow controls, ring fencing, value for money, benchmarks. We ensure with this bill that every dollar mobilized translates, Mr. Speaker, into tangible outcomes. And so when I speak of tangible outcomes, I refer to our resilient housing, safer communities, Mr. Speaker, across Dominica, improved public infrastructure to provide jobs for our people. When we're building homes, we're providing access. We're providing better roads, Mr. Speaker. Our homes now come with parking. All these things, this is CBI. From citizenship to concrete, from capital to keys, the line of sight must be clear, Mr. Speaker. As a Minister of Housing, I can attest, without this CBI program, our post-disaster recovery would be slow, it would be painful, and less inclusive, Mr. Speaker. We would not see this transformation that we're seeing across Dominica now. Because of this same CBI program, we have moved families from danger to safety, and we're still doing that, Mr. Speaker. We reduced homelessness in Dominica. We cut the rental stress for those who don't have the means. We raised the standard of living and the quality of life for our people. We created the conditions, Mr. Speaker, for children to study in peace, because research has shown that proper housing allows children to be more comfortable, to study better, and it allows for the older people to even live longer, Mr. Speaker. They rest in security, our elders, and for communities that have been able to rebound after the ravages of Hurricane Maria. This is the impact of this program. So this is not a handout, Mr. Speaker, it's a hand up, because we are bent on building resilience and generational wealth of our people. To our regional neighbors, let this be our signal that Dominica is committed to harmonized standards, lawful cooperation, and mutual protection of our collective reputation where CBI is concerned. To our international community, let it be known that Dominica's CBI program is tightly governed, development-focused, and difficult to abuse, and that we are always prepared to take action wherever the need arises. Fact is, Mr. Speaker, we still need the CBI. It's reaching into the hands of the everyday Dominican here. And so we're always prepared to do what it takes to make this work. To the people of Dominica, hear this assurance. These reforms keep this program strong, clean, and squarely in service for you. The work does not end with the passage of this bill. From the Ministry of Housing standpoint, we will keep channeling proceeds into homes that can withstand the next storm, into titles that will secure tenure, into urban renewal that will lift Roseau's prospects, and into local jobs, Mr. Speaker, that continue to circulate in our economy. Because one thing we pride on, all the homes that we're building in the communities, Mr. Speaker, the jobs stay within the communities. The contractors are taken from the respective communities where these buildings are going up. So we ensure that the money stay among the people within their homes and their businesses and their children and their wives and their spouses and everyone, the shopkeepers, can benefit from the circulation of the CBI money. So our story is simple. and profound. In a world of movement, Dominica chooses to manage movement with dignity, to harness investment with discipline, and to convert opportunity into shelter, safety, and hope. And Mr. Speaker, with confidence in the reforms before us and with gratitude for this program's proven impact and with unwavering commitment to best practice, I fully extend my support to this bill. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Paris, you may proceed. You are recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Whoa. Honorable members of the House. Mr. Speaker, this is an interesting bill to be debating today. I think there are a number of things that we can all agree is really unprecedented about this piece of legislation. Agreement that seeks to bring some clarity, some additional transparency, and sustainability to CBI program, not just in Dominica, but around the region. It shows how we're shifting from the way we manage our program at a national level, purely national mechanism, to a regional government framework. I think, Mr. Speaker, the objective is noble, to protect the reputation and align with international best practices to safeguard the economic value of the CBI program as continued benefit to not just the people of Dominica, but the people of the region. So, Mr. Speaker, admittedly, and honestly, of course, we have to start by taking a look at the positive and profound provisions in this agreement that benefits everybody. And we're not going to belabor it, but I have to name some of them. Uniform standards, regional oversight, pre-qualification and licensing agreements of promoters and developers and everybody involved in the program, the escrow accounts, and the auditing oversights, the central database and data sharing oversight, enforcement sanctions and revocation powers, the caps on quotas and control on growth. Talk about that a little later. The due diligence interviews and name change framework, withdrawal and amendment mechanism. Mr. Speaker, the bill captures most of the modern good practices that we're expecting to see in a citizenship by investment program, particularly after dealing with the amount, and Honorable Henderson mentioned a few of them, the amount of international recommendations and all of the concerns and the issues that have been continuously raised about programs, not just ours, but across the globe. I think this piece of legislation makes a noble attempt to address a number of them. Meaningful improvements that demonstrates serious attempt to align with the best practices. And Mr. Speaker, as legislations and agreements goes, it is not without serious critical concerns. Concerns that I believe deserve being mentioned and addressed. The sovereignty of national discretion comes up for debate. Because the question now becomes, who has final say as to what happens with your funding? Will Dominica have final say over the type of investments accepted, the pricing, and how CBI revenues are allocated? And what happens when, if at all, the authorities' directives conflict with national priorities? What do we do? How do we do? Let's look at the limited control that we have over post receipts and the use of funds. Oh dear, is that an issue that we think we need to address? Is that something that comes up for us? Honorable Henderson made some alluding to it earlier in his presentation. One of them that stands out for me, Mr. Speaker, is the capacity and resources and the enforcement gap. The authority's powers are broad, but enforcement depends on personnel, funding, technical capacity, and political will. Under-resourcing or weak follow-through could render many of the provisions symbolic. Mr. Speaker, how many inspectors, auditors, IT staff will there be? What is the funding model? And what resources, or rather, what recourse do we have if the event comes up that the authority fails to act? What do we do? Do we act on our own? I think those are serious questions that need addressing in this framework. Another one that stands out to me, Mr. Speaker, is the uniform quotas. Who decides what the quotas are? Who decides what the quotas are? And how do we expect that? And Honorable Henderson alluded to that. How do we expect that to change the dynamic of the program that we currently have? Will Dominica's national context, the demand for capacity and development needs be fairly weighed in quotas? We know what we have done with our CDI. That changes the dynamic. And who makes the decision? Who makes the decision about that? What about the due diligence surveillance gaps? In the past, some people who really shouldn't have gone past or gone through the due diligence surveillance. Some of them have ended up in trouble with the law. That has brought some disrepute and damage to the reputation of our system. What happens to them and others in this scenario with this new agreement? I think I heard the Minister make some reference to it, but does the bill make provision for post-approval monitoring? Post-approval monitoring. Yeah? We do? Very good. What about underselling and price violations? Underselling, price violations, without adequate enforcement, Mr. Speaker, rogue agents can still operate outside the legal limits. Another subject, Mr. Speaker, that both of us will agree is of major concern. Mr. Speaker, the bill is, as admitted to, partly in response to international pressure. All of us, we are aware of the comments and the recommendations from the EU and the United States and others about securing these programs. And largely, this is in response to a lot of those recommendations. But one of them, Mr. Speaker, that is not properly addressed, I don't think, is one where the EU recommends that CBI funds or investment funds are directly transferred to the host nation and not delivered into accounts in any other country, ensuring transparency, legitimacy of the program. Mr. Speaker, failure to comply with recommendations similar to these, how does that affect our vulnerabilities to the program? Does it still put us at risk of losing visa-free access? Getting under that type of scrutiny from our international partners, Honorable Blackman. In going through this bill, Mr. Speaker, and the bill and of course the agreement, I did a bit of research. Obviously, it is the Caribbean harmonized legislation that we're doing, so I wanted to see what people in the region were saying, right? And similar to some of the concerns that I have, people like, well, organizations like Citizens International and Best Citizens and IMI Daily, etc., they commend the draft for being ambitious, like me. I think the draft is ambitious. I think it's in place. But Mr. Speaker, that is not without concern. And some of the concerns are, as I raised before, that the quotas might limit the growth and revenue potential of a number of countries. That increased residency and genuine link expectations might deter some investors who prefer to enjoy minimal residency. People have that choice. And as the program stands now, many people enjoy that. Some people want the options to have additional citizenship, Honorable Henderson, but that's not because they necessarily want to live anywhere else. It's expansion of their business. It's expansion of their global footprint and their global impact. How does that genuine link affect the marketability of our program? Bureaucratic overhead may slow down approvals, increase costs, or delay for investors. And smaller states may feel constrained and overridden by a regional authority that has the potential to be dominated by certain states. The effective enforcement will depend heavily on political will, resources, and intergovernmental cooperation. And Mr. Speaker, this is where it starts to get interesting for me. Why? Because it's not that the regulations are bad. We've been speaking about these regulations for some time. These and others. But where the cookie starts to crumble for me and where it starts to get interesting is on the subject of political will. Do we have the political will to stay the course? Do we have the political will to adhere to the sustainability that these pieces of legislation provide? Do we have the political will as a small island state to not exceed our quotas when it seems, obviously, that the majority of our national and capital projects depend heavily on CBI? How do we manage when, or if at all, these quotas affect our ability to sustain these projects? And who makes that decision? But do we have the political... What happens, Mr. Speaker, is the question that I'm asking. What happens? Some of our sister islands don't have the same situation and same reliance that we have on the CBI. And who makes that decision for us? And when it comes down to the wire, which one takes precedent? Our national priorities or the regional priority of the authority? That's the question I'm asking. Mr. Speaker, we have to have the collective political will to ensure that we remain committed and disciplined to the sustainability that this will provide. Because as Honorable Henderson represented a while ago, it may not be business as usual. It may not be, if not CBI, then what anymore. It may not be that. Do we have the political will to ensure that we can stay committed to these pieces of legislation? Mr. Speaker, as we are we prepared as an administration to enforce these regulations? I have a concern, Mr. Speaker. Significant concern. Why? Because in our recent history, we don't do well with regulations. There are some places where we have significantly dropped the ball on enforcing regulations and supporting regulators. And in the fallout of it, Dominicans paid the price. One example is our insurance sector, where we didn't do what we were supposed to do with the regulations. CLICO, BICO, later on, First Domestic. The fallout of that was because the regulators didn't do what they were supposed to do. And in turn, people in Dominica paid the price for it and they got hurt. People weren't able to recoup their investment. There are still people who have just accepted that, well, whatever sapu fair. I can't even translate it. Mr. Speaker, it means God is good. What we'll do? I think that's the transition. But Mr. Speaker, we dropped the ball. And yes, these regulations are here, but do we have the political will and the integrity and the discipline to enforce them? To maintain the sustainability and the integrity and the transparency that this piece of agreement, this piece of legislation tries to enforce? That is where my concern is. And I heard the Minister of Trade giving us a lovely history and talking about all of the things that we did before. But the reason that we have these pieces of legislation coming now is clearly because something was wrong and something needed to be done. And there were loopholes in the system that gave it significant vulnerabilities, which is why we couldn't even do it by ourselves. We had to get the rest of our neighbors to do it together. I'm saying, do we have the discipline to ensure that we uphold these regulations? Because we're not good at regulations. It's interesting, Mr. AG, because, Mr. Speaker, you know, up right now, we're having issues with regulations, you know. Mr. Speaker, you know, and I'm glad you said that, I'm glad you said that you're the one who brought it to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, you know confirmation starting tomorrow? The confirmation, it's starting tomorrow. Right now, we are having issues with regulations because good regulations that you brought to Parliament is being changed now. There are ideas and people who are seeking to change those regulations. Why, Mr. Speaker? No benefit to people. No benefit. The benefit that we think that we're going to get by not adhering to the same good regulations that we know about. What it will do, Mr. Speaker, and I will use the famous word, it will disenfranchise the same people that we purport to protect. It will disenfranchise the same people that we purport to protect. Mr. Speaker, there are attempts now to amend Regulation 8 and Regulation 51 in particular. And what that will do, Mr. Speaker, because I hear the AG talking, so I know you know what I'm talking about. Mr. Speaker, what it will do is that it will disenfranchise poor people. It will make them vulnerable. Another situation again, where because we do not respect our own regulations, our people will get hurt.
Well, are we speaking of this regulation?
Mr.
This
Speaker,
bill?
yes, I'm speaking of these regulations. You know why, Mr.
No,
Speaker?
the bill.
Mr. Speaker,
So,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
so stay
Here's why,
focused.
Mr. Speaker.
So stay
Here's why.
focused on the bill.
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm very focused, you know, laser like a dot. I'll tell you why. Mr. Speaker, because regulations and the enforcement of regulations is in public interest and defend of the public good. And when we do not enforce them, when we allow the regulations, Mr. Speaker, we have another bill coming before the House today, where we're seeking to adjust regulations again. We're not good with regulations, and things keep slipping through the crack. The enforcement of regulation, Mr. Speaker, is a public good. It is in defense of the people of Dominica, and I'm saying we have to have the political will, the integrity, and the discipline to enforce it. We have not been able to demonstrate that we have it, Honorable Henderson. We have not done that. We have not done a good job of doing that in our recent past. And I'm saying and raising the question, Mr. Speaker, that what we need to have is the political will, the discipline, and the integrity to enforce regulations that would protect the public interest and enforce the public good. Mr. Speaker, it's a good piece of legislation. And we have to do everything that is possible, necessary, and right to ensure that we protect the public good. Not for ourselves, because we're not here for long. It's past we passing. But Dominica's children are going to be here tomorrow. And what we do today, what we uphold today, doing the right thing today, will protect the future for our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Blackmore, you may proceed.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I almost want to apologize for allowing Senator Parrish to have spoken before me. Because, well, I give you, because you actually asked him to speak thereafter. But in the interest of allowing people to express their views, even if the views may be different to ours, we actually yield it to him. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister gave the introduction to this measure, and he spoke English. Dr. Henderson, Mr. Speaker, was also trained in the area of law, gave a technical and clinical analysis and instruction of the agreement that this House is seeking to approve. I did not see any reason for me to have stood there. But the Honorable Paris, Senator Paris, is a young man, and then relatively speaking, and the other members on his side are also very young. So I suspect that they don't have the historical understanding as to what transpired before. And lest we forget, Mr. Speaker, and just to go back to the point he made about the demonstration of the political will. Mr. Speaker, let me make it clear in this honorable House. No other party from the time of the inception of the program in 1992-1993 have demonstrated the political will by way of policy instrument and the passage of legislation in this honorable House we are now at. And political will is manifested and defined by a government's ability to take policy measures and to transform those policy measures into law, and that is what we are seeking to do now here today, Mr. Speaker. And lest we forget, Mr. Speaker, when this party came into office in 2000, I'm not sure how old you were. That's why we need to go back. And to all the people listening, the younger generation listening. When we came into power, Honorable Henderson made reference to the program then. I happen to have been, Mr. Speaker, appointed on a committee, to chair a committee, along with the then senior state attorney, may his soul rest in peace, Mr. Commodore, along with the then manager of the Financial Services Unit, to do a content analysis, Mr. Speaker, of the then Greystone project. Now, Mr. Speaker, we also got an attorney, a draft person, to do a legal opinion, Mr. Speaker, of the agreement. And he came back, he's still alive, I hope he's listening. He came back with the legal opinion captioned, Amazing Grace. Mr. Speaker, lest we forget, Mr. Speaker, all the files, Mr. Speaker, of the program then, which was superintended by the United Workers' Party administration, Mr. Speaker, were in drawers and cupboards all over the place in the Ministry of Legal Affairs, Mr. Speaker, with no database. Lest we forget, the permanent secretary then, who was retired, is still alive. Names I shall not call because the law does not put the provisions or the standing orders will not provide me so to do. Lest we forget, Honorable Henderson made reference to the number of agents all over the place. No due diligence has been done, Mr. Speaker. And we studied that process of ensuring systems were put in place where the list of agents at the time, a number of them had to be delisted, Honorable Henderson. Delisted. Lest we forget. So if you want an instruction on political will, the party that has demonstrated that from day one to ensure that the Citizen by Investment program was transformed and made to, and continue to work for us is the Dominican Labour Party administration. Lest we forget. So when you come there, you don't know because you're a young guy still. And speaking out of Mr. Speaker, sounding bright, a bright guy, yes, but you can be bright. But Mr. Speaker, you know something that I'm struck by every day? I'm struck by people who are bright, the kind of things coming from their mouths, Mr. Speaker. Bright people. And today was a classic demonstration of that, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister for Housing, and I want to go back to that, because he made a reference to who controls the money. And money is being deposited in other accounts, and the government does not have control over the money. But the Minister for Housing gave a practical intervention, presentation on a number of ways. Mr. Speaker, I want us to remember, because Senator Paris wants to have his cake and eat it. It doesn't work that way. Most of you are not married person, you have to give and take. Ou passe les bonbons, et bien manger en même temps. You can't have a cake and eat it at the same time. And he's seeking to do that. Now, Mr. Speaker, if you listen to the political discourse coming from the other side for the last couple of months, and they have been calling on the government what you're doing to go to Parliament to do the very same thing that we're doing right now, to have a harmonized approach as to how we treat with potential citizens under the program. They're asking what we're waiting for. Today, now that we are here, when we should be, to stand in Parliament and are celebrating, in your own words, but finally, the government is demonstrating the political will by coming into Parliament and to put into law the measure, the agreement, and to signal the signing of the agreement for this harmonized approach among 5 member states. Now, he's speaking in the reverse perspective. What do you want, Senator Paris? You don't know. You cannot have your cake and eat it. If you have a cake and eat it, you might end up getting too big. Understand? And then that's not good, Mr. Speaker. You can't have your cake and eat it. Mr. Speaker, now, Mr. Speaker, on the other note, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Paris, of course, is a guy,
Senator.
is a bright guy.
Senator Paris.
Senator Paris. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Minister made reference to the point that I want to echo that. That will, of course, and I want to say to you, Senator Paris, obviously, inevitably, it might impact on the inflow of business. But you have to also understand, and that's why I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, we cannot have our cake and eat it. And it calls for a more profound understanding of the world in which we live. And also for us to make this connection of the world that we are currently living in and how we got to that part that we are now in Dominica and the rest of the Caribbean in the first place. And that has defined us from day one. We got there by way of slavery and indentured servitude. And Mr. Speaker, that reality continues to haunt us all the time. And all the things we try to do, Mr. Speaker, we are going to get obstacles. But we have to be able to understand the reality because every country, including Dominica, has a right to take measures to protect the national security interests. Let's not kill ourselves. And that in itself will seek to do that. That in itself, Mr. Speaker, will also seek to ensure that potential bad players can be identified and weeded out from the process. And Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I want to make reference because a number of times people tie that to it is easy to get our passports, you know what I'm saying? And people walking all over the world with passports in their briefcase, and man just putting their name. Mr. Speaker, that is so unserious to say, and very unfortunate also. Mr. Speaker, we have put in place the most robust system to ensure that our passport does not fall into the wrong hand. And every instant, Mr. Speaker, in the recent past, when a bad player have tried to counterfeit or to forge in any way our passport, that person has been intercepted, Mr. Speaker. It demonstrates, therefore, that the system is working. I'm talking about in every instant when somebody has tried to enter a destination with a false Dominican passport, that person has been intercepted. And it speaks to the fact that the system is working. And Mr. Speaker, and our passport are stored, Mr. Speaker. I think it's important because Parliament has a responsibility to educate the public. That all our passports, Mr. Speaker, because some reason, everything is linked to a passport. We know, without suddenly giving people a passport. Every passport, Mr. Speaker, is stored in a centralized location in the Commonwealth of Dominica Rosso. Do you understand what I'm saying? And in order to obtain a passport, you have to have a certificate of naturalization, or you have to be a born Dominican, Mr. Speaker. And the inspector, the person in charge of immigration, Mr. Speaker, okay, cannot enter the vault to take a passport in the absence of the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Immigration. So he has a key, she has a key. And an audit is done whenever that is done. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's impossible for any agent, Mr. Speaker, to have in his or her possession any passport traveling overseas. Even though that person reported to the police for that person to be arrested, Mr. Speaker, because that person will be charged for theft of a Dominican passport. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So, I mean, I think we have to put some clarity into that thing and stop, Mr. Speaker, misinforming the public on some of the information. Mr. Speaker, insofar, I want to respond in a practical way as to who has access to the funds. Mr. Speaker, governments after government, some people say, who was the best leader of the country? All the leaders before tried to build an international airport. They spoke about it, not tried. But they never went close, get close. Mr. Speaker, now we have an airport being built to the extent to which they can understand what is taking place because of the difficulty of it. Over $1 billion coming from the CBI money, Mr. Speaker, and they're talking about who has control over the proceeds of the CBI funds, Mr. Speaker. I don't get it. The Minister for Housing, I'm not going to go over what she said, spoke to all the housing interventions, all the roads that you're driving on. You have your friends who have been educated overseas at universities, paid for and supported under the CBI program, Mr. Speaker. We have to understand what is at stake. So those of us who are celebrating that, they're passing that law right now, that agreement. The CBI is going to die, Mr. Speaker. That is it, you know. It might be an act of political expedience when you say things like that. But if the CBI dies right now, Mr. Speaker, you know that. But it will not happen like that because the things that we're using the proceeds of the CBI to do is to ensure that we have sustained economic growth in the years to come. And that's what the airport will do, that's what the marina enforcement will do, that's what the cable car will do, and that's what all the interventions that we're doing in the road network, etc., education will do, Mr. Speaker. So be not afraid that notwithstanding the difficulty and the roughness that the CBI program will go through, because that has been the path our life have been taken, has taken from the time we came into the Caribbean as slaves of our parents. And let us not forget that. So it's a continuation of that hardship. But it's almost as a process of natural selection. Every time it gets more difficult, we find a way to survive, Mr. Speaker. And we find a way to survive easier because we have a Dominican Labour Party in office, Mr. Speaker, ensuring that those policy measures and the programs that we need to ensure that we survive in this current difficult environment is possible, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my last point I want to make, he made reference to the fine. Did you see the fine of averaging $100,000? So you read the bill. So why were you asking the question? So, Mr. Speaker, so I first support this measure. As I said, Mr. Speaker, It's a tough thing that you have to do it, Mr. Speaker. It's been more difficult. But of course, what I'm saying, I want to just take you back to the song from Bob Marley. Huh? See them back there on the wall. Those who fight and run away, live to fight another day, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we're demonstrating, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, like you, I don't think no, you. One time you ran, you fell, and I came back, Mr. Speaker. So those are like you. All right? And Mr. Speaker, I support this measure before this honorable House.
Yes, I recognize Honorable Dr. McIntyre, but you came after. So, but you guys can decide who want to yield. You want to proceed? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill establishing the CBI by investment, citizenship by investment, regulatory authority agreement, Mr. Speaker. And I really want to commend the Prime Minister for his leadership in ensuring that we got this bill to the House. And I want to repeat that because it appears that Senator Paris did not hear when the Prime Minister said that in 2015, he tried to get the countries involved in CBI in the OECS to form this legislation, Mr. Speaker, but only Antigua supported the movement at the time. So it is clear that there was always political will recognizing the importance of this program and the importance to safeguard it for our people, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is just to strengthen transparency, accountability, and security. And since the Dominica Labour Party government transformed the CBI program, we brought in legislation to govern it, Mr. Speaker, for transparency, accountability, recognizing that is a form of revenue to use to advance our development without adding additional tax burdens on our citizens, Mr. Speaker. We moved the program that was being run in the office of one man who had the checkbook and signed on the account. I would not say, Mr. Speaker, we all know the story. Let's not pretend there in this honorable house how the program was being run. In the back pocket, a checkbook in the back pocket of certain officials, Mr. Speaker, to a well-governed, respected program that, as Honorable Scary said, has received awards worldwide, has been #1. Best international best practices. That is the program Dominica runs. A program that has been recognized every year for the last 3 years, you said? 3 years. So we are not here because the program is not run properly. We're here to strengthen so that if somebody applies in Grenada and they are denied, that we automatically know in Dominica, Mr. Speaker. We don't have to do the work twice, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when you go to this bill and to see how it was structured, it was well formulated, Mr. Speaker. You have the Council of Ministers, you have the Board of Directors, and on the Board of Directors, the Central Bank has a seat, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and the OECS Authority, Mr. Speaker, for greater transparency, Mr. Speaker. And that is because we recognize the importance of this program. But Mr. Speaker, when Senator Paris speaks about CBI, he speaks about it like an abstract. That he's not aware of what CBI has done for this country, Mr. Speaker. He never refers to it. And it's interestingly, today, he's concerned about the marketability of the program. I wish he were greater concern about it a few years ago, when his own, I guess I don't know what's happening now. His party went on a CBI 60 minutes program, giving the world the impression that we were selling passports like hot bread, Mr. Speaker. That is the reason you know all these things are happening. Because once you put something out there in social media, it's global, Mr. Speaker. Everybody reads it. And the citizens of the European Union and everybody, they read it too. that right here in Dominica, the opposition party that pretends to be interested in the welfare of Dominicans is denigrating a program that uplifting the lives of people. So CBI has a face. And the face of CBI is the scores of Dominicans that we have empowered, educated, protected, and secured, Mr. Speaker, and the development that is taking place in every sector in Dominica. Mr. Speaker, when Hurricane Maria came, and you have to repeat those things, people like, repetition is important, so everybody will hear and continue to know what this government has done in this program. When Hurricane Maria struck Dominica, Mr. Speaker, and 95% of our housing stock was damaged, and the Minister of Housing spoke to it. And I walked in Point Mission, and I walked to Soufriere, and I saw the depression on the faces of the people who lost their homes in a matter of minutes. The despair, not knowing how they were going to rebuild, Mr. Speaker. It is the CBI program who gave them hope, Mr. Speaker. That is the face of the CBI program. Mr. Speaker, the scores of Dominicans who could not afford to pursue tertiary education at Midwestern State University, University of the West Indies, Grambling University, Mr. Speaker. And this government paid for their tuition, Mr. In most cases, full scholarships. That is the face of CBI, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when we talk about small business, the number of small business owners have been empowered to start and to expand, Mr. Speaker. $350 million dispensed over the last 20 years. That is the face of CBI, Mr. Speaker. And don't talk about health care. The health and wellness centers were built all around Dominica to ensure that Dominicans have access to the best healthcare services in the region, Mr. Speaker. That is what we have been doing with the CBI program because of political will, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, and when we talk about development, Honorable Blackmore mentioned it. The international airport, the hotels developed under tourism. Mr. Speaker, prior to CBI, we had under 500 hotel rooms, Mr. Speaker. Because of the CBI program, we will be able to double that, Mr. Speaker, by next year, if all the hotels under construction open, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the marina, what it will do for the yachting sector, and the people of Pays and Nays and all over Dominica, even in Scott said, will benefit from that, Mr. Speaker. Well, mega yachts, more mega yachts start to come to Dominica, Mr. Speaker. More jobs, more opportunities, more small businesses will grow, Mr. Speaker. And those that exist will expand. That is the transformation we're talking about. So when he says, without CBI, we are dead, we have always said, the Prime Minister has always said, that we never know when this program will come to an end. We'll do our best to safeguard it, but we have used the funds to transform Dominica, Mr. Speaker. That is what we are doing. And so, Mr. Speaker, I thought Senator Paris, instead of trying to give a PC statement on regulations, would welcome these regulations. Because he finally admits, despite the stance of his party, that this is an important program to further the development of Dominica. I'm happy he's finally admitting to it, Mr. Speaker. But instead of saying that boldly in the House, he tried to go through the book and look to see where he can pick, where the legislation said, oh, did that make sense? Oh, will we do it? But we brought it to the House, Mr. Speaker. Why would we bring something in the House if we did not want to enforce it? That is what the Dominica Labour Party has always done. Mr. Speaker, we have always been a responsible, prudent, and trustworthy party. That is why the Dominican people entrust their lives in our hands and not yours. Because you talk about everything like it's an abstract. Talk about the reality, the benefits to the country, the benefits to the people of this program. And what you were supposed to say in this House, I am happy for this legislation. Let us continue to work to safeguard it so we can finish the projects we have under construction to transform Dominica's economy. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I say we welcome these regulations, Mr. Speaker, and let us as Dominicans understand that Dominica is the only place that most of us will have to call home, Mr. Speaker. When we are in Dominica, we can throw little blows here and there, Mr. Speaker. But we should never go on international media to black-eye our country, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this honorable house be suspended until 2:30 this afternoon.
Seconded, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the House be suspended until 2:30 this afternoon. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House stands suspended until 2:30 this afternoon.